Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today's video shares some tips for die cutting and masking. So creating your own masks with dies, especially with dies that are coordinating to a stamp set. So this is a great technique for getting more out of products you have. I will be using some new products from Simon Says Stamp and Hero Arts, two of my favorite companies, and actually a stamp and die set that they collaborated together on. I'm going to show you this leaf card first and then briefly show you how I did the heart card also. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm using Ink & Dinkadoo stamp masking paper. Any kind of masking paper would work here, or even a piece of thin typing paper you could use as a mask. I have the new Simon Says Stamp Stitched Grand Maple die. This is a great die for this technique, but you could also use it for shaker cards and other things. Now I'm cutting this die from that masking paper that I showed you, so it'll have a sticky back to it. Now you could use this leaf itself, but I'm going to save that for another project. And I'm using the negative space, which actually has that fun faux stitching around the edge. I am also using this new prayers set that was a collaboration between Simon Says Stamp and Hero Arts, two of my favorite companies. The die and the small stamp set are sold together, and I really like this set. This is one I'm going to be using quite often, and it's been bumped up to my favorite of all my stamp sets. There are many different greetings you can put together there for different occasions. So I'm going to be using the stamp and the die together in this video. Now I die cut the prayers from another piece of the masking paper, and I'm going to keep both the positive and the negative space for this technique. So now that we have our masks ready to go, let's go ahead and do the heat embossing of the word prayers in the background. That'll help us place everything around it. Now I used the prayer stamp many times already for other cards, so it's all inky and stained, and I wanted to show you how I clean my stamps before I go to a clear ink like Versamark. I have this Hero Arts scrubber pad and Hero Arts Ultra Clean spray. This is a great cleaner. I spray one side of the scrubber pad, scrub my stamp on it, and then scrub it off on the other side, and then wipe it with a wipe. And then you can clean that scrubber pad by running it under water if it ever needs it. This way I know that even though my clear stamp is stained, it won't transfer that color. So you can see I can go to a clear ink now and I don't have to worry about it. If you are finding that your clear stamp stain, that is a good sign. That is a sign that you have high quality clear stamps. So you just need to make sure you clean it and you'll be good to go. So I've stamped this with Versamark ink towards the bottom center of a piece of Neenah white cardstock. Any white cardstock would be okay. And I'm adding Hero Arts gold embossing powder. Now I'm going to let my heat gun get really good and hot before I bring it to the paper to heat set that. If you let it get hot first, then you don't have as much warping of the paper. Next, it's time to grab our leaf mask, the negative space of the leaf mask, and place this over the word prayers. And I'm going to do it kind of offset off the side of my white panel here. Now, keep in mind that you can do any shape here. You could do a heart, a circle, a star, any shape of large die that you may have, or a punch. Now I do have a lot of white exposed on that panel on the left and the top, and I am afraid that I will get that inky as I'm creating. So I'm just going to take some Post-it tape and cover that up. You could use any kind of tape or scrap paper for this, but I'm going to reuse this Post-it tape on another card, so that's what I chose to use here. So now the only thing exposed is everything inside of that leaf. But if you look closely at the word prayers here, there's like a white halo or trim around it where it's on top of the leaf. It gives it a nice clean look. And I'm going to do that with the prayers die cut mask we created earlier. Now I'm using the negative space of the prayers die cut just as a tool here to help me position the prayers mask perfectly. So I'm taking the negative space and I'm lining it up over the gold embossed image that we have there. Now I'm taking the prayers mask itself and positioning it right inside, just popping it inside like a puzzle piece. Once I have that placed, I'm going to remove the prayers negative space mask. It was just using that as a holding place, and leave the prayers mask itself in place. Now you could eyeball it and try to position the prayers mask on top of your heat embossed sentiment on your own, but I wasn't getting it lined up very well. It really helped to use the negative space kind of as a guide to place it nicely. So now I am removing the negative prayers die cut mask and leaving just the word prayers itself on top. So now you have the heat embossed prayers completely masked by the die cut. So now we can do our inking. I'm going to use Distress inks today with my ink blending tool because they blend so well for inking techniques like this. However, you could use any inking tool in any ink that you may have. This works well also with dye and pigment inks. So I'm coming in with my ink blending tool and some peeled paint green Distress ink. Now normally I do a swirling motion with my hands when doing this technique, but I don't want to mess up my masking. So that's why you kind of see me dabbing here, because I don't want to move the word prayers when I'm doing this. But I started to realize that it was sticking well and I could swirl around a little bit. You just want to be careful when doing it. If you use a light hand and slowly build up the color, you don't have to worry about getting marks from the edge of the inking tool. So now I'm coming in with a wild honey color. It turns out my wild honey needs to be re-inked here, so I need to do that. That's why it's looking a little bit light. And now I'm coming in with Fired Brick Red, which is like a brick red color, just on the outside tips. I'm going to work my way in on the leaf. If you really want to make sure you get the right coloring for your leaf, you can Google like a fall leaf and get the right coloring. I'm just going with kind of whatever I want to do here. So once you have enough of the color down, notice that on my card here, there's like a grid pattern in my inking. This is just a fun technique I hadn't done in a while. I have this screen from Dreamweaver. You could also get a screen at your office supply store, or I'm sorry, a hardware store. But this is nice because it's just a small piece. You don't need to buy like a big roll. It's a flexible screen, and I just lay it over my inking, and then I firmly press some ink over it without allowing the screen to move. And what happens is you get like the screen texture in your inking. You can do all kinds of things over the screen, but I think it's really fun just to add the look of texture to a simple inked piece. You could also use a stencil for that look too. So now we're going to remove the mask. I first removed the prayers, and you can see that white trim that we got by masking with the coordinating die. So think about any stamp that you have. You can mask with the coordinating die, ink around it, and then you get that nice white clean trim. And I removed the leaf mask here. I tore it. You could have removed it slower and preserved it for another card. I also decided to go in with a gold pen and add like that faux stitch line around the leaf. I was kind of inspired by the die cut itself that did that faux stitching. We didn't pick that up with the mask, so I'm just adding that in with a gold gel pen. Any kind of gold gel pen would work. My favorite happens to be the gold Uniball Signo pen, but I can't find mine, so I grabbed this other gold gel pen that was actually my son's. Okay, so now I want to have Sending Hugs and stamped right above the word prayers. And it's a one long sentiment, so I cut it apart so that I could stack it. I'm going to stamp first Hugs and with Versamark ink right over the word prayers, and I'll gold heat emboss that. And then stamp the word sending above that also. Cutting your stamps allows you to get more out of them, and it doesn't damage the stamp. You can always mount it on the block how it was originally intended. Now that we have all our inking and masking done, you can see how it makes a really big difference that we mask with the coordinating prayers die cut. The reason is that gold prayers would get lost on that inked leaf. So by having that white trim around it, it really makes it pop up. You could always just layer this card, but I wanted it to be that one layer panel. I did also want like a gold strip on my card right down the side of our stamp panel. So I took some white cardstock, rubbed some Versamark ink along the edge. Now I am putting on some of the same gold embossing powder right onto that cardstock. And then I will heat set that and trim off a tiny, very super thin strip of that gold embossed paper. That way I know that thin strip will perfectly match the heat embossing that we did on the sentiment. So I cut a super thin strip here, and it's going to go right along the edge. I have a top folding Avery L Papaya note card, and I'm going to go ahead and glue my stamp panel all the way to the left-hand side of this note card. And by the way, the note card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I'm also going to put some adhesive on the back of that thin gold strip and add that right up against our stamped piece. I think adding these super thin pieces like these little strips, is a great way to use up scraps and also just giving a nice defined edge, a nice finishing touch without adding much bulk. So this is pretty much a one layer card. Okay, so now that we've done this card, I just want to briefly show you bits and pieces of another example. It's done much the same way, but I wanted to show you the few things that are different. I have the word prayers heat embossed with silver embossing powder this time from Hero Arts. I have a large heart die cut that I masked, and this die set is from Memory Box. I'm going to go ahead and mask off around this too with some more of the Post-it tape. I tend to be kind of messy, so I want to make sure I have enough masked off. This time I am using Distress Inks in the Picked Raspberry, Abandoned Coral, and Ripe Persimmon colors. So it's like a pink, a coral, and more of like a bright orange. And again, you don't want to be too firm here. The lighter you apply the color, the less chance you have of messing up your mask, and the less chance you have of having like defined hard edges from the inking tool. So start light and keep working light and just keep going and building up the color until you get the darkness you want and the blending that you want. I also decided to use the little hearts from inside that prayer stamp set to stamp some hearts along this. And I'm using some Hero Arts Ultra Pink ink here, but you could use any ink. I could have used the Picked Raspberry from Distress Ink there. I am again using the screen to add that little bit of texture to put more ink on top of it. Be sure to clean it between the cards because the ink does stay on the screen. I just run it under water and have no problem. Then I can remove my mask, and once again we have that white trim around our prayers embossed word. Now here's a little trick I just wanted to show you real quick. If you have a hard time stamping a clear sentiment that's small towards the center of the card, getting it straight, use a T-ruler. Just set your T-ruler up where you want it to be and leave it there while you do your stamping right up against the edge of the T-ruler. It works great and it helps me make sure that everything is lined up nicely. I assembled this card just like the other, but this time I used a Uniball silver Signo pen to put little dots around the heart, just for a fun added touch, and it matches the silver embossing powder. So there you have a technique of using your stamps and coordinating dies to do masking. This is something that you can do with any stamps and dies that you may have. I hope you found this inspiring. If you are interested in the products, they're linked below in my YouTube description, and you can head over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com for more information and a fun giveaway. I appreciate you stopping by, and I hope you'll return again soon. Have a great day.